Our Voices of Energy conversations are designed to provide listeners with a deep dive into the technology and innovations that are shaping the future of utilities and for the smart grid. However, in an industry as complex as this one, the adoption of new tools and the integration of new processes isn't always a technical issue, but can instead be about the people and teams that need to do both of those things. It's why utilities need leaders who not only understand the technology, but can also build the strategic partnerships and market intelligence that's necessary to drive real growth. Our guest today is exactly that type of leader. Bobbi Harris is a strategy powerhouse who has spent her career building nimble, effective marketing organizations and cultivating strategic relationships across government, utilities, partner, and media. She's also the executive director for the Utility Broadband Alliance, also known as UBBA, which is an independent alliance of utilities and ecosystem leaders that are focused on broadband for utilities. So much more about UBBA and what it's meant for that organization to literally bring the industry together. But Bobbi, thanks for taking the time to connect.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us, before we get into everything, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your background, and really your professional journey in the utility space?
Thank you for that. It has been a journey and an exciting one. Over 20 years, starting with marketing at high-tech data analytics software company in North Carolina, and the evolution through SCADA companies and AMI companies and on to other association work. And then in 2018, 2019, the opportunity to stand up the Utility Broadband Alliance. So probably a unique path to where I am today, but one that I have truly loved, being able to work with utilities, municipalities all over the world to solve their smart cities needs, whether that's in energy, water, smart telecom of all sorts. So it's been a great journey, and I can't wait to see what the next 20 years brings for sure.
Agreed. So yeah, you mentioned UBBA. Can you tell us in the founding of that? Can you tell us a bit more about the how that came together and even how you're literally bringing the industry together in your recently completed summit?
Absolutely. It really was a group of utilities and technology provider companies that came together for some early conversations because there was a true gap in the industry around the next generation of utility broadband infrastructure. And not just the telecom, the air itself, not just the telecom network, but all the devices that needed to be developed and to accelerate that ecosystem in order to allow the utilities their opportunities to take on the next generation of grid modernization. Utility modernization is not a new term. It's something obviously that's been ongoing and will continue to be ongoing because new things happen. But there was a gap. The utilities said, hey, we need someone to stand up a new group for us just to focus on this. And when they approached me about it, it was very much an honor, still is very much an honor to serve this group of utilities and this group of technology solution providers. And we spent about 18 months or 2 years, really right during the height of COVID too, finding out if there was really a there, if there was really enough of a need to stand up a trade association, a 501c6, a legal entity that not only would solve and provide the solutions and the collaboration, but one that companies frankly would be willing to pay to be part of. And we launched officially as a 501c6 on February 5th, 2021. So we're coming up on our 5th birthday, and I'm so excited that it coincides with DTECH. I know we're not there yet, but I'm so excited because we're planning some birthday celebration in conjunction with Distributech, DTECH in San Diego. And so I'm really excited about that. It's just serendipitous, I think. But the evolution of UBBA since those early days when we immediately grew from that handful or two handfuls of organizations to now more than 115 companies, utilities and technology solution providers, consultants from all over the world, the latest and greatest technology and the tried and true technology. Companies like Nokia, companies like Anterix, like Burns and McDonald, Worldwide Technologies. You can only just imagine that kind of thought leadership and collaboration coming together. And that's really what UBBA has been all about from day one, and I'm proud to say continues today.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that they're there? Like, is it and how you're able to meet the needs of the sector that otherwise wouldn't happen? Like, is it about having making connections that otherwise wouldn't be connected, or kind of, I mean, just being able to kind of talk through who certain people should be talking to in a bigger way?
It's a lot of those things. Really, it came down to the basics. The utilities needed to know who to talk to. They still need to know who to talk to because it's a journey. And those that have already started down the journey path can share their lessons learned with those utilities who didn't even know who to call. So that was a big part of it, still is very much a big part of it. It was also the piece from the solutions providers, the technology providers side, that they needed to know what the utilities were about to ask them for, because it was very much a pull from the utility need side. They didn't really know what to call it yet, but they knew they needed this. It was also the pull of now we have the opportunity for 900 megahertz spectrum. That was the first one that really was the catalyst to kick it all off. It's evolved at UBBA to now talk about 800 megahertz. The spectrum number can be multiples. It can also be carrier networks. It can be the handoff, the failover, and the failback between public and private networks. All of those things utilities need to utilize at certain pieces, obviously, even the handoff to fiber. All of that is still going to be important, but the utilities wanted to take their operational needs up a notch. And in order to do that, they needed the telecom infrastructure to evolve with them. They needed more bandwidth. They needed more reliability. They needed the resiliency. So not only to recover from major storms, which are also becoming more and more frequent, but they needed to be able to protect the grid from bad actors. They needed to be able to continue to serve a new population explosion, really, and out into the rural aspects as well. So, and that all comes back to telecom. Every one of the use cases of that they want to do now and they want to do 5 years from now and they want to do 10 years from now, all are going to rely on higher reliability, lower latency. The telecom network is really foundational and fundamental and can't be left out of any of the conversations for the strategic planning of a utility. So that's where UBBA brought all the right people together. We still bring all the right people together. And it's that collaboration, because I've watched dead competitors come together and say, let's solve this for this utility. Even as part of PlugFest, that was kind of the remarkable byproduct of PlugFest being launched. Our first one was 2021 in St. Louis, Missouri. We were hoping we'd get 100 people to show up. We had 300, still modest, but it was really exciting to say we can stand this network up and connect things to it. And we watched those competitors, normal competitors, come together and say, oh, let's do this or let's do that. Let's really, the engineers really dug in. And the utilities watched this and they said, you know, if these vendors are willing to come together to solve our problems, that's what we want more of. And that's what UBBA's really been all about since those first days and still today, even with this past year's summit and PlugFest.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to ask you about briefly. And I know that we're a few weeks beyond Plugfest, but I mean, is there anything from that event that resonated with you, either in terms of conversations you had or what came up in multiple sessions that stayed with you?
You know, it was really exciting to be so sold out, um, to have such an impact, to have more people attend the 2025 UBBA Summit and Plugfest than we ever expected. Duke Energy was amazing host utility. They really leaned in to utility innovation and showcased the things that they're working on. We had another very large showcase, a private LTE showcase that had 3 other utilities that were showcasing what they're doing with private broadband networks. Then we had Plugfest that really brought the lab testing into the live testing atmosphere. And we again saw the vendors come together to focus on utility driven and utility decided use cases. Some of the things though that continued to resonate, this year for the first time we had actual tracks and we broke them up based on the journey. And you'll hear me say the word journey a lot because it truly is a journey. And the utilities at the beginning of the journey, or the we don't know if we're going to do this, but we want to know what we need to know journey step. The content there was very much around lessons learned from previous utilities who have gone down this path. So things like even understanding the business case. How do you connect with the PUC? What's going on at the FCC? Those kinds of conversations, that foundational business drivers for why you need to do this. And then the next big bucket really was around those utilities who have gotten the green flag to go forward, and they're trying to figure out what does that mean? How do you deploy? How do you make decisions about sites? How do you make sure your SIM card manufacturers and that process is going to go well? That was a great track because, and the rooms were really full because now you've got several utilities who are down the path, down the journey, and sharing their knowledge and helping other utilities prepare, like get your cybersecurity team engaged before day one because they need to be part of the conversation and so that the build out works right. All of those things. And then the third part of the journey, the third bucket that we had was really around, okay, so you've started the deployment, you've got some stuff up and running. What do you do next? What can you do next? And really that focused on some key parts around AMI 2.0, for example. That's a new initiative for UBBA. Again, another gap that the utilities ask us to focus on. Obviously working with EPRI and the 3GPP standards, the GISA work out of the Linux Foundation out of Southern California Edison, but we're partnering with that. Again, we're the one of my members said we're the connective tissue for all of those pieces so that the utilities get the place to go to get the answer. So, you know, AMI 2.0 was a big forward-looking step because that grid edge, as we continue to push to the edge with analytics and with computing, again, it's going to have the right kind of network in order to do that successfully. AI and data centers obviously were another big topic, will continue to be a big topic. Again, not only is that something that's a challenge for the balancing of the electric grid, having enough power in those places to support AI and data centers, but the comms network, in order to make sure all of that works, is going to have to be faster and more robust. So those are just some of the main topics that we heard this year, and you know, we're already starting planning for next year.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it and positioning it as a journey that makes total sense, and it is just across the board. Like you're never going to be at a place where it's all right, we're done with this transition. I mean, it's constantly evolving, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you. How, in terms of that evolution, where do you see the primary focus shifting for utility departments, and when it comes to their comms? Is it still on establishing private LTEs, or utilities really moving to adopt 5G capabilities?
I think that's always going to be an evolution. I think the foundational part of private LTE allows for the evolution of 5G and 6G and whatever else comes. To me, that's the key piece of it, that evolution piece of it. So I think right now, the private LTE side is the piece that gives the utilities the command and control that they need the most for utility operational infrastructure. And that's what truly this is mostly about. The business case of the new network is operational, it's foundational. It's not taking broadband to the end user or to the home, although that could become an opportunity down the road for some utilities if it makes sense, but that's primarily not it. It's for the utility operations. So I think you're seeing a lot of Operational technology advancements. You're seeing a lot, obviously, on the AI side. What does that mean for utilities? What should it mean for utilities? But foundationally, also, you can never let go of more and more cybersecurity because um, you're going to have more and more attackers. So I think those are going to be the things UBBA is going to be focusing on into the new year. Certainly, we've laid the foundation for AMI 2.0, for AI, for that journey, and for allowing our utility members to drive it. They drive everything we do. So allowing them to continue to drive. And when they come to me and say, hey, Bobbi, we've got another gap we need you to fill. That's where being nimble and agile and being responsive to our members is exactly what UBBA was all about. And, I think one of the projects that we're working on, as a matter of fact, right now that we've just launched is the Utility Broadband Revolution and Evolution, I think. And it's going to be an insights piece from Utility Broadband Alliance, from our members. Mike Smith's heading that up. So that's going to give a whole lot of new insights, and that's going to actually launch it's launching now, and it'll come to be published in 26 at the UBBA Summit and Plugfest.
Excellent. No, that sounds like a great resource. And you mentioned about the gaps. That's what I was going to ask you about, the hurdles that are in the way of or in front of utilities to enable this transition and evolution. What do you see as are some of those main hurdles? Is it about not seeing where the opportunities are, or cost? And what does it mean to push past them to get where somebody needs to go?
Yeah, I think the utility hurdles haven't changed a lot. They're going to be foundational for utility hurdles anytime. Utilities are always going to be risk averse. They're always going to be the fast followers. They want to make sure that whatever new innovation has been tested for utilities, it's utility grade. They're going to want to be sure it's got legs and that it's really solving their issues. And I think that's one of the hurdles always to get over. Money's always a hurdle to get over. This is not a small, run down and buy a widget and you're off and running. This is an investment and an investment for the future, but it's also going to turn an ROI that's going to be beyond their, I don't want to say beyond their wildest dreams, but it's going to be beyond what they've expected. So I think those hurdles are being addressed. Certainly, education is always a hurdle, helping not only the utility leadership understand the value, the public utilities commissions, the regulators, the agencies, even the federal government, to understand the value and the need for this, and how it transitions to us, the general consumer. What does it mean for Bobbi? And I always go to that because, you know, when you boil it down to its most basic concept, everything that they're spending the money on is going to allow the power at my house to stay on or to get turned back on faster. And that's life. And that's the piece that we always need to continue to connect the education of. It's less about spending money. It's less about buying a new device. It's more about how can we make the quality of life for the customers that these utilities serve, how can we make that better and more secure and reliable? And foundationally, that'll never change. And the utilities that get that also don't really have some of the hurdles that you might expect. We
Yeah,
find a way.
starting in a better place so that those issues don't become challenges and they're already
Yeah.
off and running. I know a lot of that is the baseline for the program at Plugfest, but then also part of DTECH that we've already touched on, and you're part of DTECH in a bigger way. So, can you talk about what it means to be the chair of the DTECH Planning Committee, both in terms of process as well as the sort of insights and connections that this role has enabled for you?
Absolutely. Being part of the DTECH committee for several years now, and now leading the committee really has been an honor to me because every time I think I know something, I go to one of our committee meetings or I talk with someone on my teams and I think, wow, these folks are really smart. And so I'm really honored not only to serve, but that DTECH cares enough about the industry to ask us to serve. It's not a group of people just saying, here's the program, here's what we think is important. DTECH asks the industry what's important. And to me, that's really important to be part of that conversation. The whole process from the day they open the call for presentations through the vetting process and then through the working with the speakers to get them their very best quality content and to keep it fresh. And that's always a challenge. We have that challenge at UBBA Summit and Plugfest. Every event's got that challenge. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep the topics fresh and so that people want to hear them and haven't heard them before? And, I think that's probably part of the value that having the committees for DTECH really brings. It really, that value brings the new concepts every year. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about my track. I'm excited about all the tracks. The hardest part about DTECH is deciding which one to go to, which session to
Wow.
sit in on,
There's
because there's so
there's
many
so much
great
happening
ones.
at the same time.
Yeah, it's so great though. So I applaud that.
Excellent. Well, and along those lines, any ones that are top of mind for you to check out, or any sessions that you're especially looking forward to taking part in?
I was actually, since the mobile app just opened this week, I was actually going through and trying to figure out which ones to put on my schedule. So I'm going to say it's been a challenge, and I've only had, a day to look at it as far as the mobile app. And that's where I really I use that to make sure I stay on track. But, a lot of the topics that I like to hear from, as many people do, is from the utilities perspective about what their needs are and what their successes or what their failures are. Frankly, we can learn a lot from things that didn't go quite as planned. So I'm excited to hear some of those.
Excellent. What do you think is the most appealing aspect of DTech for somebody that might not have ever been exposed to it? What is it that makes it an event for somebody that they need to have on their radar?
I get asked that question a lot uh, because it is a huge event when you think about it. I mean, 15, 18, 20,000 people coming together. It can be a little overwhelming to someone who has not been before. And my response to that is you might not know why you're supposed to be there, but I guarantee you'll come away with at least 10 conversations that you will say, I could only have had there. So, go with an open mind, get the mobile app going, kind of set your plan, because otherwise it can be overwhelming. But don't be afraid to be that first person walking up and saying, I haven't been here before. Because I guarantee you're not the first person who hasn't been here before. And come by the UBBA booth and say, hey, because we would love to meet each and every one of them.
Excellent. Well, and we talked about, I mean, how big DTech is in the program as well. But what's beneficial for me is being able to think about it in terms of chunks. Like, I mean, we've got your communications track. So like that, and you can pull up the schedule to just look at that. And so that isn't 100 or 200 sessions or whatever it is on the full track, but it's these 12. And so being able to kind of define these specific paths and topics and programs, like the schedule allows anybody to break it out depending on what they're focused on or interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean about make your plan. Make your plan on your tracks, make your plan on the exhibit hall, make your plan, and then just work it. And then leave some time open for ad hoc things too, because you'll get there and someone will surprise you and it'll be great.
Well, and on the other side of that, you kind of touched on it in terms of the it not being the same show or the same content every year, which is a challenge. But at the same time, I mean, it really is different year to year. And anybody who's been and who's in their head is going, oh, like I was there last year, a couple years ago. I don't need to go again. Like that really isn't the case. It's not only because of those kind of one-off conversations, but I mean, there are specifics that come up. And I mean, we read these abstracts and go to these sessions. There's stuff that comes up in there there that you're just not going to see or get anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm anxious to see all the folks that come for the first time.
Excellent. What do you think is the single most significant non-obvious shift that you're looking forward to seeing take place in 2026? What do you have on your radar?
Not obvious. That's the hard one. When you eat and sleep and drink this all day, you sort of forget that there's something else out there that you haven't learned about yet. And I think that's probably the most exciting and a little bit scary. But I think there's going to be some interesting opportunities next year. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I feel like I want to take the safe route and go down the AI path, but that might be a little bit too safe. Um, we all know that's going to be a big topic. So I think we'll just have to wait and see, and again, stay nimble. That's UBBA's mantra, stay nimble, because you don't know what's coming down the pipe that the utilities are going to need. It could be something fairly technical like falling line conductor, could be something totally evolutionary, like I don't really know what, could be something in space. We'll see. But it'll be exciting. I know that.
And you mentioned at the UBBA's anniversary, and we're going to be able to celebrate that at DTECH. Is there anything specific that you have planned for that? Or I mean, you mentioned kind of folks connecting at the booth, which we want to encourage. But anything beyond that for some folks?
Yeah, we're actually working on some things. Obviously, we'll have our strategic board meeting there. We bring utilities, and we love to have the utilities meet there on site and celebrate. We're working on a reception. Of course, everybody loves to have receptions at Distributech. So we will be having a special reception and seeing how we can celebrate the first 5 years. And then a few other things, some announcements. Certainly some announcements around the new research project and around the 2026 event, but we may have some other new announcements, but it's going to be a celebration, so we will keep you posted on that.
Yeah, no, definitely want to stay tuned for that. And I mean, best place for that, is there kind of a top social channel you guys utilize, either LinkedIn or and then obviously everything's on your site.
Yeah, we're actually getting ready to redesign our whole website. So there's another great project to work on, because we want to really make it even more user engaging and user focused. So it'll be an evolutionary process as well. But we do most of our social on LinkedIn and X, LinkedIn mostly. So check out those announcements. We also send out monthly newsletters, and you can always just shoot an email to info@ubba.com, and we'll add you to all of the outreach and keep you in the loop.
Excellent. Well, Bobby, last question for you. We've been talking electricity and all things utility. So to kind of wrap up, tell me something powerful.
I would say the most important, most powerful thing I would like to leave people with is the journey. The journey is going to take energy, your own energy. It's going to take your own open mind. It's going to take reaching out to others. If you don't know how to reach someone, let us know. We'll help you find them. It's a journey. Don't get weary in the journey. Be prepared in the journey. Get your team together for the journey. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help on the journey. But it really is a journey. So don't think you've got to have all the right answers on day one or day zero. Just know that you know where to reach out to get some of those answers.
I love thinking about that your own energy, or the energy that you can bring into or as part of a team. Like it's a different way of positioning that, but I mean a necessary one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Bobbi Harris, we really appreciate you taking the time. We'll see you soon at DTECH in San Diego next February.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.